Hi, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining me tonight. I know there's a couple of teachers live at the moment, so I really appreciate you choosing to spend some time with me. Um, I unfortunately am a little bit under the weather, so I'm gonna see how I go with doing the full kind of hour and a half, and I'm sure I will because I've prepped a bunch of topics to discuss, and I'm sure it'll take us through to the end, and maybe we'll even have to do a part two. Um, but Yeah, how is everybody today? Obviously, Lauren, lovely to see you as usual. If anyone wants to say hello in the chat and just tell me where you're joining us from and what the weather is like where you are, because in London, surprisingly, obviously we're going into winter as far as I know, but today was really warm. I went for a walk in the park without a jacket. I had kind of a little jumper on, and I was I was too warm. So it was a very sunny, really beautiful day, and obviously because I'm under the weather, I didn't want to go to the gym or do anything strenuous. But I just thought I need to try and get outside. I wanted to do some earthing and grounding, so I went and did that. Although because of the temperature now, it's very muddy, and so I had to wash my feet like 3 times when I came back in. Just because it's quite squelchy on the grass at the moment, but do we all that are here kind of know about earthing? Does anybody else do it? If you don't know about it, it's essentially a practice where you walk barefoot in, and I mean, there's different ways to do it, but the main kind of primary like requirement is for part of your body, or ideally as much of your body as possible, to like bare to be in contact with the earth. So, sitting on grass kind of achieves the same thing, or at a on a beach, kind of walking in water and things like that, or swimming even. But essentially, the idea behind it is that obviously we use electronic devices all the time. I'm going to say hi to everyone in the chat as well. Hi, Tatiana. Thanks for joining. I know many of you were on Rob's as well and jumped over, so I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got to hang out there and also here again. So I was just talking about kind of what earthing is and the benefits. So essentially, it's like having a part of your body, or as many parts of your body as possible, in contact with nature and with earth. And the purpose of that is that when we use kind of electronic devices and when we just sort of go through our day, we end up building charge in our body, and it's kind of not a good thing. And so practicing something like earthing means that our body then has a chance to release some of that charge back into the earth. That's at least as I understand it. If anyone has any further insights, let us know. So obviously today I woke up with a bit of a sore throat, kind of the sniffles, and I just felt compelled to, and I looked outside, it was quite sunny, and I just felt compelled to kind of get outside, get some fresh air, um, and do a bit of earthing. And so I did, and I'm really happy that I did that. Funnily enough, while I was doing that in the park, I had my headphones in and I was listening to my kind of tarot horoscope. There's a YouTube channel that I follow called Sacred Knowledge Tarot, and I really like her. I love her energy. And she basically, have any of you heard of her? And if not, I recommend checking her out. But she basically releases twice a week. She releases videos for each star sign. So for Taurus, which I am, and feel free to share kind of what your star signs are in the chat as well if you'd like to, if you feel called to. Are there any kind of fellow Tauruses around? She basically shares a video for each star sign twice a week. So for Taurus, it's on Wednesday and Sunday, and so the kind of new video came out today. So I was listening to it while I was earthing and walking around in the park. And there was also kids having a sports day type, or I don't know if it was a PE class or a race or sports day or what, but they were doing that in the park as well. And so there was me kind of walking up and down just barefoot. It's called Sacred Knowledge Tarot. And her name's Ria, I think, and she's really lovely. So anyway, there was me walking up and down in the park, like barefoot, just with I'd put my slippers on the side, and then I was just walking back and forth. And it's a really nice thing to do because you kind of end up looking down at the grass and feeling really like relaxed and calm, and the rest of kind of what's going on around you doesn't really factor in. And so anyway, so sorry, I was walking up and down listening to my horoscope, and then I also and then the sports day, there was like a path going around. So I was walking on the grass, and there was a path that went kind of around the bit of grass that I was on. And she based so I keep saying she because I'm thinking of the Sacred Knowledge Tarot thing. But anyway, so I was walking up and down on the grass, and then there were like all these kids running around the outside of the path I was on, and also like a couple of parents around kind of taking pictures and encouraging their children. And I think it's so interesting because at a previous time, in a previous life, like a number of years ago, if I was trying to have a peaceful, quiet walk, I might have found that annoying or found that irritating. Whereas now I can I find myself being able to just like find joy or take like I will type, do you know what? I'll type it in the chat for you guys. And also, while you're on YouTube, if you are open to giving me a follow as well, I would love that. I'm Priyanka Rose 1111, all one word, on YouTube, but you can also find it in my link tree. Yeah, I've got a goal to reach like ideally 500 subscribers on YouTube, and I want to start creating more kind of original content on that. So yeah, if you guys are open to following me there as well, I'd really appreciate it, and sharing with anyone who you think might benefit from this. So anyway, yeah, I was saying that there was a time where I would have found it kind of irritating to have all these kids like running around and kind of screaming. They weren't screaming, they were just being kids. And yeah, it's just interesting how we change and we evolve and we grow, and how really perspective makes a huge difference to how we see things and how we experience the world. So another example that I always think about is when I used to swim, when I used to go to the pool. I would there was a particular spot that I really liked, and I would kind of try and stick to like along the wall, so that basically when I was swimming backstroke, I had a kind of line to guide me to sort of stop me swimming into anyone else. And I used to be like a bit disappointed if I got to the pool and that spot was taken, or if the pool was too busy, I'd be like, oh no, I can't. Like, I'm not going to enjoy swimming now. Whereas now there'll be times that I go to the pool and it's like absolutely heaving, and there'll be like kids there sometimes, and it'll be busy, but I'll just kind of swim anyway if I want to, and just sort of swim around them. And yeah, it's funny how we can just adapt and evolve and like learn to take things in our stride. And when we change our perspective on things, it changes like actually how we experience life. So yeah, that was I don't know exactly where I was going with this, but the point is that yeah, I had a nice walk and I did some earthing, and I recommend that if anyone else feels called to get outside and connect with nature and discharge some of this kind of energy that we carry with us, to do so. And I was listening to the Diary of a CEO podcast, which I referenced before, and I don't know if I mentioned this particular episode, and I can't remember who the guest was, but the guy basically said that, so he was a guy who used to work for an insurance company in the US, and his job was to kind of figure out essentially what people's lifespan would be. And he would be responsible for that based on all the information that they were given. And what he noticed is that even when people shared, like they flagged markers for things, they weren't allowed to contact the person and say to them like, hey, you need to make this lifestyle change, otherwise you're going to die in x many number of years. There was just like regulatory stuff preventing that. And he left that industry because he just felt like it was really awful to know that there's feedback that he can give to somebody that he's not allowed to give, um, that could save, like essentially extend someone's life, and help them to like heal and live a full, vibrant life. So anyway, this guy, this guest on the podcast. Hi, Rob. Lovely to see you here. Oh, that's so sweet. So I was on Rob's live just now, and I was making like a salad to eat after this, and I was listening to Rob's beautiful music. Um, so Yeah, any of you who don't follow Rob, please do. He's incredible. He's one of the kind of like original teachers on Insight Timer that I've there's a few teachers who make me feel just super welcome, super like part of this community, and really helped me with my journey to becoming a teacher. Rob is one of them, also Catherine Ramati, and of course Blossom Violet, and there's a few others as well. But those are the main like sort of angelic trio who I feel like kind of held my hand a little bit and been really fantastic. And yeah, thank you, Rob, and to all of you as well who've kind of been here and supported me. So as I was saying, this guy on this podcast, he was saying that so Stephen Bartlett, the guy who hosts it, asked him, what would you what are the kind of 5 things that I should do every day, or that you do personally or that you recommend that would be really like transformative? And he said, what I can't remember all of them, but one of them was earthing, which obviously I did today when I was feeling unwell, and you guys can probably hear it a little bit in my voice. But I'm here and I'm having a great time with you guys, so there was no way that I was gonna bail. Because I think I get as much out of this, or if not more, than you guys do. Um, and then he also said about having like I think it was like Australian gold salt, or the other one he mentioned was Celtic sea salt, because it has a lot more. It's like a grey salt, and it has a lot of like minerals and kind of vitamins and stuff in it, and that's what I've got here in water. So hopefully that's going to help me get better. If anyone else has any like home remedies they want to share, please let me know. And then, yeah, so those are kind of the little mini updates. And then I have a few other things that I've obviously the topic of today is roadblocks to creating community and authentic, meaningful connection. So I've got a list of kind of various topics to chat through in that space, and what we can do about overcoming them. And then, as always, you guys know that I like to share a little bit around like what I'm reading, and yeah, Tatiana, you said you add Himalayan pink salt into your water. I've heard that's good as well. So I've looked into the kind of different salts, and the thing from what I can see, you can if you kind of look them up, it sort of says like what the mineral compounds or like the nutritional makeup or whatever of each of them is. But I recommend like the Celtic sea salt as well. I think Himalayan pink salt is great but it has a lot of one specific thing. I think the grey Celtic salt has a lot of has a wider range of like minerals in it. So I'm going to catch up on the comments quickly, but I've got what I'm reading next to me, and I've got things to share, and then we're going to sort of get started and talk about roadblocks to overcoming community and connection and what we can do about them. So, Anna, hello, lovely to see you here. And Tatiana, obviously, we already said hi. Um, And who else have we got? Mel, hello. Hello, hello. And of course, Tommy, lovely to see you. Welcome back. So you have hot lemon water with Celtic sea salt every morning. That sounds delicious. So I tend to do intermittent fasting, partly because the health benefits work for me, but also partly because naturally, from when I was basically a baby, well, not baby, but like a child, I didn't ever feel hungry in the morning. And so my mum used to force me to have breakfast before nursery. And like, honestly, a lot of the time I wouldn't be able to keep it down because obviously, like, if you genuinely have no appetite and you're forced to eat like a bowl of like porridge or cereal. Um, and I've always been that way. I think if I wake up super early, then maybe I get hungry a bit earlier. But otherwise, if I'm waking up at, let's say, like 9, um, I I then will kind of get hungry around like 2, 3 p.m., sometimes later. It just depends on what my day is like. And I tend to find if I'm busy, then it's even later, like if I'm distracted. But I don't do it strictly. I just eat when I'm hungry. But what I struggle with is having an early enough cutoff time, because I was saying that I've made a salad to have after this. And for anyone who's a foodie like me and is interested, my salad has pink grapefruit or red grapefruit. No, wait, I think it's pink grapefruit. Hi, Tea Lady. We're just, by the way, if you guys are interested, check out Tea Lady Nat's profile. She's got a link on there for a business that she started, and it's very exciting. You can only get it if you live in the US, but yeah, it's worth having a look and just kind of supporting her as well. So I was saying the salad that I've made to eat after this, it has pink grapefruit, um, green lentils. I'm gonna put some like salad leaves and rocket, I think, in there. Goat's cheese, delicious. Fig leaf and olive oil. Um, balsamic and fennel. That was the big one. And do you know what's funny? I bought a grapefruit the other day and I thought, oh, I don't know what I'll do with this grapefruit, but I like grapefruit. Maybe I'll make a drink with it or whatever. And then today I was thinking about, obviously, because I've been feeling run down and under the weather, I was like, I need to get as many kind of nutrients as possible here. And I Googled, and I do this all the time, but I don't know why, because obviously I kind of know the answer to this, but sometimes I just Google things anyway. And I Googled like highest nutrient foods to battle a cold or to, overcome a cold or whatever. And fennel was one of the top ones that came up. And I was like, wow, that's like a nudge from the universe. I'm going to go out of my way and go to the shop and get fennel. So yeah, it's funny how things kind of come up and are sort of circular. So that's what I was doing anyway while I was listening to Rob's like lovely music. That's what I was doing. I was making a salad. Um, and I honestly I love his lives. They're so great to like listen to while you're doing anything else. Usually for me, it's kind of sometimes getting ready for bedtime, or kind of depends when it is. Um, so the next thing that I wanted to cover is I've been reading a book that I have really, really struggled to put down, and I've just realised I've lost my bookmark, so I don't know where I am in it. But obviously, I usually cover the type of books that I shared previously. Like the last one we talked about was this, and it's a book about the Danish search for happiness. And I read a little bit from there just randomly at the end, and I might do that again. But you know what? I think I will, and I think I'll talk about the health chapter because last time we talked about money because of the fact that um, I'd had a couple of things happen in Paris, and there was a theme of money, and I'd kind of got a little bit scammed. And for those of you who were here last time, I did my session earlier during the day, I think, but you can watch that session on YouTube, and yeah, it's a very, like, harmless, actually, like, quite lovely story. Well, not lovely, but I'm quite proud of my response to it and how my takeaway from it. But anyway, we talked about the section on that book. It was around money, and I read a little quote from there, which was really nice. So we'll end with a bit of, stuff about health on that and the Danish search for happiness and whatever they have to say in the health space. But this book here is what I've been reading, and I've been really, really, like, I don't want to say obsessed with, but it's really taken me, and it's for a few reasons. So it's a fictional book. It's called The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels. Now, Alperton is an area not super far from where I grew up in like northwest London. So it's it's a place that I've heard of growing up or kind of been through, and it's a sort of like murder mystery type book. And I know obviously that's not the kind of insight timer like a vibe or topic, but I feel like, many of us here are interested in many different things that are insight timery and some other bits that aren't. And obviously, true crime is a very big, like, there's been a massive surge in popularity in that space. I don't know for sure if this is based on a real crime or real story, or if it's just pure fiction. So I'll need to look it up. But the way that the book is laid out is really interesting. It's like a combination of kind of text messages and emails and kind of sort of other excerpts from other books. And it's a kind of fictional tied together story of this case unfolding and the mysteries that come up. Um, and in a nutshell, the story of it is that there was a group called the Alperton Angels, and they sort of did a kind of ritualistic, like, suicidal pact thing. And there was one angel that was living that still existed, and then there was a baby that was going to be sacrificed but wasn't. And obviously, just to reiterate for anyone that's just joined, I'm talking about a fictional book. and this baby is now 18, so interest in the case has kind of resurged, and these like two writers want to write a book about it, and they're trying to track down who the baby is, but then they find out so many other things in the process, and they found out that it was like a completely closed adoption, and that that that's kind of a route that they can't go down, so they have to find other angles on the story. But they have weird things happen, so whenever they visit like two of the angels that are still existing, that's still living, and I mean, the group called themselves the Alperton Angels, I think, or the case was called the Alperton Angels, something like that. But whenever they visit them, one of the writers has like a physical reaction or response. He sort of feels really like delirious, and there's like a strong surge of energy. Um, Whereas the other one kind of doesn't believe, and they both are cynics. They don't really like believe in any of that stuff and energy and stuff. But what I found most interesting was that in the book, there's this concept of like places holding energy, and it's not something that I think about a lot. And if anyone has any experience of that kind of thing, like please share it in the chat. But I think it's something that I might try and explore or look into a bit more, because I just, it's very curious how like actually people say that when they visit places like Auschwitz, that there's a really strong like feeling and energy, and some people even have to like leave and go outside and like be sick, and they say that it's like palpable. um I personally don't know that I've been in a space like that or kind of had that kind of experience to my knowledge that I can remember. um but yeah, so anyway, so why I'm bringing this up is a few different things. So first of all, in this book, the warehouse where they did kind of the sacrifice, they talk about how there was like a energy concentration there or something, or maybe it was like a specific like energetic thing, and the one of the people does some research and basically finds out that all the murders that were committed in the area over the last like 18 years were all in a circular kind of, they all formed a circle around this one space with this space at its center. And like obviously that's quite a big like I guess like claim, whatever, and it's a fictional book, just to reiterate. I don't know if the case is real, but I know that I imagine a detail like that is fictional. And it made me think, because last night, even though I wasn't feeling 100%, I was feeling better than I am today. There's underneath my building, there's a yoga studio that's opened up, and they're quite new, and they've been offering free classes for the community every so often, just to like introduce new teachers. And they had a slow flow class, and I've wanted to go for a while, but I've always had like my live or other things. And yeah, basically, um so I went there and did the class, and it was lovely. It was really, really nice. Like, had a really lovely time. It was really kind of wholesome, and like I felt great afterwards. And one thing that I loved, and this is what, we talk about community, we talk about connection, and they actually like put the kettle on afterwards, which I've never seen done in a yoga class that I've ever been to. They put the kettle on, and they were like, whoever wants to stay for tea. And the person who owns the studio, her daughter, she must have been like under 9 years old. I don't know how old exactly. But she came in with like a little basket of all these different teas, and it was really sweet. I didn't stay for tea because I wanted to come home and have dinner, but I just really loved the concept. And I messaged the owner today to say, thank you so much for the class, really enjoyed it. And she said to me that she's really keen to do more sort of in and for the community, and that she's kind of really interested in like being part of the community, etc. And then I said, oh, like that's interesting, because that's what I do. I teach on Insight Timer around how to build community and authentic, meaningful connection. And maybe there's something there that we can like do a workshop together, where maybe it's like a combination of a talk and or workshop and yoga class as well. And an idea I had was like, it'd be really nice to do kind of yoga where you work with like partner work and stuff, if anyone's done any of that. um so yeah, that's something that happened today that I'm quite excited about. But what I was thinking, I was talking to my mum about this on the phone today, and I said, I really hope that this studio does well, and I'd like to kind of help and support them however I can, because I've got some background in kind of new business and business development. And I said, not for anything, like obviously it would be nice if maybe there's an energy exchange and I can do a class here and there. But like that aside, I just really want them to do well. Like I want local businesses to thrive and bring that sort of energy to the community. Like how lovely if we've got, people who are doing yoga, like 20, 30 people at a time in that space. And it made me think that, and because I can literally see the yoga studio outside my window. It's like my apartment's like here, and then it's literally like there's this very small kind of road which one car can like fit down, and then the yoga studio is like downstairs, so I can like not directly look into it, but it's right close to me. And I said to my mum, I said that's actually really interesting. Is if we are looking at and thinking about the fact that like places can hold energy, and when people go to retreats or kind of big group meditations and things, where partly people often say that when they meditate with other people in person, that there's a lot of energy that builds up, and that it's you can feel it and it makes a difference compared to just meditating on your own at home. And it made me think, like, if this yoga studio is right here and it's there's people coming in there healing, like doing good things for their mind, their body and spirit, and potentially making making themselves like better people and calmer and stuff, that's like a beautiful energy to have right next door. So that was just something that I kind of reflected on, and I think I thought about it because of reading this book and the kind of common threads there. I'm drinking a hibiscus tea, by the way, for anyone that's curious. It is definitely becoming like tea season now in London. So we can move on to the topic at hand now that I've told you guys what I'm reading. And also for anybody that isn't like, opposed to sort of crime and like slight like murdery mystery type of books, I really do recommend this. It is fantastic and I'm finding it really easy and like fun to read. It's called The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels, by someone called Janice Hallett. And I think it also is an interesting portrayal of, how cynics can come to um, believe in things that they previously didn't. So I have a little list prepared of things that are roadblocks to community and connection. But before I share, does anybody have any um, roadblocks that come to mind, either for you personally or that you just kind of think about? Just what are your roadblocks, or what are roadblocks that you think are common that prevent people from building community and from building connection? So share them in the chat if you are open to it, and then I'll chat you through the list that I've got. It's quite a long list, so we might not get through all of it, but we will cover what we can. And I'm just going to catch up on the chat while we do that. Um, oh, Tatiana, yeah, fennel. I really like fennel. I don't have it often or enough. Like honestly, I kind of should get it more, and it's nice when you shave it really thinly. That's what I do with it. And also, the kind of endy bits that are not like ideal for eating, I give them to the guinea pigs. For those of you who don't know, I have 3 guinea pigs called Monkey, Pumpkin, and Bear, and they come and say hi sometimes if there's an appetite for it. Mel, you said you agree about Auschwitz. You did a ghost tour on Norfolk Island, and a building there was very dense energy. Yeah, it's so. I haven't experienced any of this. I haven't gone to any of these places. But I'm definitely like interested in kind of horror and the supernatural, even though I'm so jumpy. Today I walked past like a black plastic bag kind of on a fence or a gate, and I kind of jumped. So yeah, and it's spooky season for those of you who are into like Halloween. So yeah, I'd love to go on a ghost tour or something like that, but I think I would scare really easily as well, or be kind of just tense anyway. Although one thing that I will say that I experienced yesterday, speaking of kind of energy and sensation, is in this yoga class at the end she did kind of a sound bowl thing, and when um when I heard the vibration, or when my body felt the vibration, I don't know which it was, I suddenly got really, really cold, really suddenly, and I really felt the energy, like I got goosebumps all over, and I'm sure it was that. So, Lauren has said, or Lauren slash Peter Broke, for those of you who don't know, um, has said shyness is one of the factors. Has anyone got any others? Um, yeah, Tatiana, I'm talking about putting fennel in salads, but I have fennel tea as well sometimes. So you get fennel seeds, which is what the tea is made out of, and then you get fresh fennel, like the bulb, and that's lovely. And in the UK, it grows wild in quite a lot of places, actually. So, has anyone got any other like roadblocks that they want to add or they want to share, or any that you can think of to community and connection? I'm gonna go through my list, but please add them in as you feel. And if there's any thoughts you have, kind of that you want to elaborate on stuff. Yeah, Mel, doubt. Doubt is a great one. So when you say doubt, do you mean doubt about getting to know the other person, or I mean, I think it's all of the above, right? So in terms of doubt, my interpretation of the ways that doubt can play up is, doubting our own ability to connect with people, doubting whether other people want to get to know us, doubting whether we're going to like the other person, and maybe even feeling, I'm just going to make this a bit brighter, and yeah, maybe even feeling like we're doubting whether we're kind of good enough sometimes. And then, is it Kiko or Kaiko? Please let me know. I don't want to be saying it wrong. But fear of rejection. And Rob, fear of vulnerability is a roadblock. Absolutely. And so all of these different things, and the ones that I listed out personally, and I'll kind of I'll list them out. And if there's any particular ones that you want to kind of hear more about or hear how to overcome, then we can hone in and focus on them. But one of the first ones that I heard about, so when we're thinking of community and connection, and when I say connection, I don't mean just like talking to new people. I mean actually having like deep, meaningful, authentic connection, not just kind of small talk. Although I think there are roadblocks, some of the same roadblocks can apply. But one of the things that I had in mind, which I struggle with, is listening and actually like being a good listener, not just waiting for my turn to talk. So that I feel can sometimes impede, our ability to connect, because, if we're not really listening to what the other person's saying, or, we're just thinking about what we want to say next, that can impede connection, because it can mean that the other person doesn't feel heard, or they don't feel understood, or they don't feel like we see their point of view, or what they want to share as important as what we want to say. Hi, Linda, as well. Um, and then the other one that I had is like blame. So there's, quite often we can blame other people for like things that we feel is kind of, wrong, or things that we have on our mind. Um, and that can, where we're like not taking responsibility for our own part in situations, that can hold us back from creating connection, because, if we're outsourcing our kind of agency and sort of playing the victim, then like us blaming someone else, or us not kind of looking at ourselves first, can be a roadblock to connection. And another one I had was kind of misunderstanding. So these are the first three that came to mind, and I think that's because for me, obviously, I don't necessarily like I'm quite open with talking to new people. I find it really easy to meet people, and I'm quite like, I'm an open book, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, which is, to my benefit, but also sometimes to my detriment, because actually I think I should have better boundaries around, like, who knows all of my, like, you know, the details of my life and things like that. Um, so I think that was interesting, that I found it interesting that the main ones that came up first for me were like these ones that are a bit more kind of, complex, or, that come after you've already probably connected with someone a little bit. So yeah, misunderstanding was a big one. So, and this is common. It's like, if you think that a situation played out a certain way, and you think that you're not the one in the wrong, and to the other person it's a completely different experience, and they think actually that they've been, perfect and fair. um Rob, lovely to see you, and I'll see you at one of your lives or my life soon. Thanks for joining, and thank you again for all your support and all your help with my teacher journey. Good night, or good afternoon, presumably, for where you are. um so yeah, this whole kind of concept of misunderstanding. So um when we don't see the other person's point of view, and they don't see our point of view, that can be a huge impediment to connection, because like we're over here, they're over here. You'll have to imagine me doing it so that, like, I'm not moving the mic away from my mouth. So let's say that you're over here, they're all the way over there. And let's say the connection point is in the middle. If you're kind of just on your own side, then it makes it very hard to meet in the middle. And then the other ones I had written down was like withdrawing, or, you know, sort of feeling withdrawn, which I think can come under kind of shyness or hesitancy or doubt as well. Um, One of the big ones that I would like to talk about more today, and the pros and cons of it, and we can discuss further, is this shift that as a society we've had towards kind of individualism. So there's been this big advent of, where we should like focus on ourselves, like stay in our lane, work on ourselves, personal development, etc., etc. And it's kind of that on the one side, but then also on the other side, it's like, us building, like, let's say, careers, or building like other things, whatever we're doing for ourselves. There's a lot of like entrepreneurs, a lot of people kind of starting their own businesses. And then also, um there's been like a big shift away from things like, like, I guess, like the bad buzzwords are like things like codependency, or, being like too reliant on other people, or, loving yourself first, etc., which I think all of these things are kind of fair and true and valid. But I think sometimes they can take the place, or they can take up some of the space that should be still left for kind of community and connection. So I think that's really interesting. And one of the things that I always say as well is like we historically would have lived in communities, in groups. We wouldn't have just been living in, flats on our own, or houses with, just by ourselves, or like one other person, or our immediate family, right? So there has been this big drive towards individualism. There's been this big drive towards, like, I have to be able to take care of myself. I have to put myself first. I have to, etc., etc., which is not wholeheartedly wrong, but I think it's maybe been like misunderstood somewhat, or perhaps taken a little bit too far in that direction. So that's just something to kind of think about as well. What that means for us, and how our kind of some of the individualistic lessons that we've learnt, or, the self-focused learnings we have, is how that kind of can hold us back from creating community and connection. And I would like to, remind you guys that actually the two things can coexist. And, like Linda just said, it's tricky. I was taught to be independent and not ask for help, but it may have its downsides. Yeah, and I think it's exactly that. It's knowing when, and taking ownership and power in where you can do things yourself and lean on yourself, but equally, being able to ask for help and being able to accept help when it's offered, particularly if it makes your life easier and if genuinely you'll appreciate it. So I think I had a similar feeling or approach, based on how I was brought up, which was that, oh, you should kind of be self-reliant, like don't rely on anyone, blah blah blah. But I think as I go through life now, I realize that, sometimes people genuinely do want to help, and we as social human beings, we get pleasure and joy and fulfillment and purpose from helping others and from helping each other. We're not meant to be, hedonistic or self-indulgent or self-involved. Like, that's not in our core nature. That's not what we're like, how we're built or how we're designed. And that's where people are deeply unhappy, when people take those paths, when they are kind of individualistic or hedonistic, or, you know, primarily focused on the material world and just kind of pleasure as a driver, without thinking about things like community, connection, giving back. That's when they find that they lack meaning in life. And I've seen this kind of time and time again. But we're not supposed to live in that way, which is interesting, because many people do. Many people believe that they have to like work hard and then play hard, and ultimately, what is it for? So that you can, and I saw this article this week on LinkedIn, and it was really lovely. And this guy, he had gone on a trip to the River Nile, and he had a really bad accident. He kind of fell down a waterfall or something, and he was essentially just left and stuck somewhere in that part of the world and unable to fly home. And it was not looking good for him. But on the day that happened, just by chance, one of the few orthopedic surgeons in that country happened to be in that area, and she essentially operated on him and helped him, and he like lived and survived and was able to then eventually fly back to the UK. And this guy is a property developer, and so he has experience of running projects, etc. And the first chance he got when he had the means to do so, he basically funded and like organized he kind of built a hospital or hospital ward for orthopedic surgery in that part of Africa that he was in. And the team is headed up by the doctor that operated on him. And he said that, obviously by the standards of the world, he's from London. He's technically a billionaire in like Uganda or wherever it was, right? And he was saying that, that's about roughly the cost of a Lamborghini, like £300,000. And he said, it's all well and good, like buying yourself nice things and doing, like all this stuff. But he's like, but consider like if you've got the means to do that, like maybe try building a hospital ward first. And I just thought it was such a lovely story and such an interesting thing. And I absolutely loved it. It made me feel like positive and hopeful in humanity. And I really hope his story and his approach inspires someone, but also like how amazing that something so good came out of something that was so potentially like horrible and difficult. So it just goes to show that we can take like events and things that happen to us and we choose where we go next. So yeah, that was individualism that we covered. And then the other one is trauma. So if somebody has trauma or has had bad experiences in the past, for example, that's something that can stop you from connecting with other people, um, and can create like roadblocks for you. So that's and I won't kind of go into that topic too much. I think there's other teachers on here and in other spaces that talk about specifically dealing with trauma. I'm not qualified to do that, but um, in my own kind of learnings, I know that there's a lot of different things that can help support you, such as inner child work people talk about all the time, meditation, also having a regular mindfulness practice, um, also seeking out the support and help that you need as well. And another one in a similar vein is like mental health. Obviously, that's something that all of us have. And we have good days and bad days, and times where our mental health is better and stronger and more resilient than other times. But that's something where, there's days that we don't feel like going outside, or we might be a little bit sad and want to stay in bed, or and I know that obviously doesn't apply to everybody, but I know that for the most part, like we all have some days that are less amazing than others, right? Um, but that can be a roadblock preventing us from building community and connection, because if we don't feel like going to that class, or we don't have the capacity, or there's other things going on for us, that can sometimes get in the way. And it's difficult because I think particularly with mental health, there's things that like we know will help with any of these things really. Is there's things that we know will help us, but then the mindset that we're in at the time prevents us from being able to like do those things or engage with those things to get that community or connection that we need, that would ultimately make us feel less isolated or less lonely. Um, the other one that I had down was social anxiety, which um, I know people have sometimes spoken on here before in the chat around their own experiences with social anxiety, and also how that impacts their ability to kind of meet new people and make connections and make friends. And yeah, that's another like roadblock, obviously. One other is communication skills, which we can also talk about here. And we did that exercise a little while ago. I'm just there's some noise from the guinea pigs. I'm just checking that Pumpkin isn't up to anything naughty. Um, they're just eating some hay, and it was a particularly large bit that made a noise when he bit into it. But yeah, communication skills is a really, really big one, and that's like both a roadblock and an opportunity around creating community and connection, because communication skills are something that you can learn, you can hone, you can practice, and I advise you guys to figure out like what works for you and what you enjoy in terms of how you communicate with people, how you connect with people. And obviously we have done and we can and will do more sessions around that sort of thing. One other thing that I wrote down was emotional detachment. Now, that I think a little bit can come under kind of the mental health area as well. But if emotionally you find it hard to like connect with people, or let's say you have a um avoidant attachment style, or there's another reason that you kind of have fear around getting close to people, that can obviously impact your ability to connect with people. And another one that I do want to talk a lot more about, this for me actually I think comes second in terms of my interest other than individualism, is being present. Can any of you relate to that? Oh, hi Sharon, lovely to see you. Yeah, this is I think live session number 8. So yeah, you can catch up with the previous ones on YouTube. But yeah, I'm a fairly new teacher. I've been doing a session a week for the last 8 weeks, I guess. So kind of 2-month anniversary, guys. It's usually on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, but generally at 9 p.m. And it's around my kind of thing is talking about creating community and authentic, meaningful connection. But quite often we talk about other things to do with kind of, I guess, life, relationships, things I've read, things I've seen and experienced, and just kind of any thoughts that myself or anyone else here wants to share. So today's topic, we're talking about roadblocks to creating community and connection, and essentially the floor's open. If anyone wants to share any of their personal roadblocks, please do. Um, or anything that you'd like advice or support on, and myself or the community or both can offer a perspective. So in the past, we've had people share stories around how they've had like a friend just kind of ghost and disappear, and them struggling to deal with that. And people have shared some really useful perspectives and sort of advice. Um, and reflections. So if anybody has anything at all, whether it's in this space of this topic, but anything that we can help you with today, or that you're struggling with, or where you're looking for a bit of support, or just to feel seen and heard, like please share in the chat. This is a safe space and it's kind of a community hangout as well as a talk. So yeah, tangents are very welcome. Nothing is off limits. But anyway, so we were just going through this list of things that are roadblocks to community and connections. So just to recap, we've had kind of, listening and not, really understanding or practicing the art of listening properly. And when we're speaking to people, just waiting for our turn to talk instead of actually listening to what they're saying and responding. Also blame. So when we are in victim mode and kind of placing the blame on other people, we're potentially losing the opportunity to kind of connect and meet in the middle. Misunderstandings as well. That's a very common one, especially if we don't then make the effort to clear that up and, realign from what those misunderstandings were. Or like if we're not curious and aren't looking, I mean, essentially that's the solution, isn't it? It's like seeking to understand the other person's perspective and being open to sort of imagining that and trying to see it from their side. Um, we also had with being, withdrawn or withdrawing. Individualism was a big one. This drive towards focusing on ourselves, working on ourselves. Oh, I need to like stay in my lane and I need to put myself first, etc. Which is not wrong, but it's balancing the two, right? It's like, how do I look after myself and do what I can for myself and put myself first, but also be in service and help others and to be part of a community and not, just like create a kind of barrier around myself. The other roadblocks we talked about were kind of trauma, mental health, social anxiety, communication skills, and emotional detachment. So that's a little recap for anybody that joined midway through. And we are on being present, which is one of my favorites. So, who here And send up some hearts or put a comment in the chat. Who here struggles with being truly present in any part of your life, or specifically when like connecting with people or talking to people? And Keith, what do you find personally stops you from being present? So I'm going to share from my perspective, but if anyone else has any other thoughts, please do. What stops me? It's not. I think everyone on Insight Timer, we're a little bit more of we're evolved enough that we're like we know that if we're trying to connect with someone we care about, we put our phones away. I think that's not our vibe for the most part. But yeah, it's the whole thing of overthinking for me as well, like thinking about other things and not the conversation or the situation that I'm currently in. Also, um, like being distracted. So sometimes if I'm on the phone, like I was on the phone to my mum today, and I was trying to also take my bins out as I went outside to walk to the park, and she could tell I was distracted. She was like, "Oh, what are you doing right now?" And I had to tell her, I was like, "Oh, sorry, like 1 second." Um, And yeah, just kind of focusing on one thing at a time, definitely. And I struggle to do that when I watch movies. I kind of get up a million times and I'll be like buzzing around. So actually I've really enjoyed going to the cinema recently because it means that I actually sit there. I will still be a bit kind of in my own head sometimes, but it means that I'm sitting still and actually like relaxing and watching something for whatever period of time, compared to at home. Like today I started an episode of something and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch this episode as like a treat because I'm not feeling particularly well and um I just wanted to like do a nice thing." I got maybe 10 minutes in before I went and did a bunch of other things. So yeah. Um so that's the being present is one obviously big thing that we can get better at, and that can help us improve our connections. Like not only to other people but also to ourselves. So, and I think the other thing with being present as well, it's like we have so many, um like even if we have our, like say I've got an Apple Watch, I'm not wearing it now, but and I've got an iPhone and stuff, I keep my phone on silent consistently and do not disturb. There's only people in my favorites can call me and get through to me if my phone's on do not disturb, which it always is. And so there's very few things and very few people that actually can like interrupt me. Um but for example, when I hang out with some of my friends, they have like their devices will ping constantly for every single little, it's a news notification, it's an Instagram thing, a message. And I have to like say to people I hang out with regularly who kind of have that, like, "Oh, would you mind putting it on do not disturb, or would you mind putting your phone like face down?" Because I'll get distracted every time it like flashes up because we get a dopamine hit from that. Every time there's like a ping or a notification or we get a message, like our brains get a dopamine hit, which is why we love our phone so much. And it is addictive. And there are some things you can do about that. So for example, I don't know whether you guys know this, but you can put your phone in black and white mode, which I should do more often, but I don't. That actually makes it less exciting and less like fun for your brain to look at your phone. And therefore you you'll naturally get less dopamine from it, which will help break the connection a little bit. So that's one thing you can do. Um, and also like deleting social media or deleting apps that you kind of tend to waste time on that you don't want to be on. So for me, I noticed a couple of years back, I was on Instagram. No, I was in a queue or something, and I just found myself without even thinking about it on autopilot. I was opening Instagram and I thought, huh, um, yeah, Peterbrook, I'll tell you something else about that as well in a moment, about the black and white mode. So I found myself just like gravitating towards Instagram without even thinking. And I still do that now sometimes with LinkedIn, but I feel like on LinkedIn the stories are generally like um are like more kind of wholesome, and like this story I told you guys about the hospital and the guy that built the hospital ward, that was from LinkedIn. I find them a bit more like inspiring. So where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. So I was talking about um oh yeah, Instagram. So I found myself just scrolling without thinking about it. And that's when I realized I have a problem. I was like, I'm going to delete the app. So I deleted the app. Then occasionally I used to use it on the browser version, which is really annoying to use if any of you have ever tried to use Instagram on a phone browser. There's only like so much you can do at a time, and it's like very like annoying. It's quite sort of awkward, and it's not like intuitive. It's not designed in the same way to like keep you hooked, because obviously they want you to download the app. They want you to get frustrated and download the app and then spend more time on there and see all the advertisers. So so then anyway, I didn't use it. That reduced my usage drastically. But then at one point I had to reset the cookies on my browser or something, and then I logged out of Instagram and I never logged back in. So that helped me to not spend time on there. Obviously, I still use my phone a lot for Insight Timer and going to sessions there, but I would really love to spend a lot less time on my phone than I do. And hopefully I'll get there. One of the things I'd like to do is use Insight Timer on my iPad more than my iPhone, because then I can't get distracted by anything else. And the black and white mode that I was telling you guys about. So I actually have the kind of side button. If I press it 3 times, it'll change to black and white mode. So you can set up shortcuts that do various things like that for things you want to do. I also have a thing, because I love music, on my iPhone. If I tap the back of it, it will Shazam automatically, even if the phone's locked. So like, there's cool things you can set up. That's under the kind of accessibility functions, I believe, and I think the black and white thing is too. Um, so you can make those things kind of easier for you to do as well. But yeah, like Lauren, please feel free to remind me to put my phone in black and white mode more. Maybe we can like hold each other accountable for that. So we covered obviously being present and learning to be more present, and actually truly giving our focus and attention to the people that we're spending time with is, we're giving them a gift in that time. Like, have you ever been in a situation or a conversation where you feel like the person is giving you their full attention, and it makes you feel special, it makes you feel important, it makes you feel like what you have to say is valued, it makes you feel seen and heard and understood? And yeah, so Mel, I put time limits on for all of my apps and I override them all. So I put time limits on so that at 10 p.m. I kind of stopped using them. But I just manually override each time, and I've done that forever, and I've done that for such a long time now that I don't even think about doing it. It just like I press it automatically. What I did last night though is I left my phone in the living room and went to bed without it, and that was actually really, really good and really helpful, and I'm really happy about that. Um so that's kind of yeah, those topic of being present and also phone usage. Um, the other one that I had, which was mentioned in the chat as well, was shyness. So again, that's something where like shyness can be a barrier to a roadblock to building kind of authentic, meaningful connection and community. And what I'd say here is, if this applies to you, if you're someone who is shy, then I will share some tips with you in a moment. But if you're not, if you're, on the opposite side, you're happy, comfortable, confident talking to people, I would urge you, where you have the chance, where you have the capacity and you feel compelled to bridge that gap for someone else who is shy. So if you see someone on their own, like at a conference or an event, and they seem a bit like shy or quiet, um, approach them, talk to them, kind of, share your light and lead by example. Make them feel like that's okay for them to, open up as well. And the other thing I'd suggest as well in a similar vein is, if you're in a group conversation and there's someone who is shyer or quieter, and we've covered this before, try to bring the other person into the conversation. So, you can ask them like, oh, insert name here, what do you think about this? Or like, oh, insert name here was just telling me this story about this. Like, why don't you share it with everyone? And obviously, I think, I'm not saying do that every time, because some people might not be comfortable about it. But, in situations where you feel like you know enough about someone that they would like to be involved in the conversation, but they can't like pipe up loud enough over people who have more to say or are more confident or comfortable sharing, then, just it's about like inclusivity. And for those of you who are, on the shyer side of things, one thing that I'd like to say is, like, for all of us, even if we're super confident, outgoing, comfortable putting ourselves out there, like we can still be shy in other situations. So I have that as an example. There's times where like I am super confident and there's times where I'm genuinely a little bit quieter, and it depends on the day, it depends on where I am, is it in my comfort zone? And yeah, so every day is different, right? So I think we all know what it feels like to be shy or to not you know always be able to put ourselves out there. So Violet 108, who's also a fantastic teacher on here, guys, says, so true. I can be very shy too, even though I'm mostly confident. Yeah, like I'm sure that I'm an introvert, even though I can present to some people as an extrovert. Like I much prefer one-on-one conversations, one-on-one kind of hangouts and interactions compared to big groups or kind of, parties or whatever. But what I'd say for people who are kind of on the shy side of things, that it's kind of so I'd say a few things. Like first of all, practice is important. And I think it's about like deciding if this is something that you want to kind of an area you want to kind of grow or develop in, and figuring out what that looks like for you. Like maybe setting a few small goals of like, oh, in the next month I'd like to talk to 3 new people, or it can be something that feels like slightly challenging or slightly outside of your comfort zone, but also sort of safe enough for you to try it and do it and not feel deterred by it. Um, so figure out what your kind of safe spaces are. And it's hard. I think it's sometimes it can be hard to like still to find something that's like right at the edge of your comfort zone, but still inside it. So you want to just try and go like maybe go to the edge and then take a little step out. But I think, understanding yourself and how you think and feel and operate and what's right for you will be a really helpful guide there, because I'm not here to tell anybody that they should put themselves out there or do something that they're uncomfortable with. But I'm saying that if you are somebody who finds it hard to connect with people or you're a bit shy, then it's worth thinking about what you can do to change that. Um, so Mel, you've asked the growth zone. Yeah, so I think, I've said this before on this session that last Christmas at my work Christmas party, obviously I've been made redundant over summer, like in July, and I had my work leaving drinks on Friday actually, which I can talk about briefly as well shortly. But so that's kind of very much end of an era. I'd been there like 7 years. But I had planned the Christmas party and we had like a magician and we had a tarot reader and it was great. It was lots of good fun. And the tarot reader said to me, one of the things she said is that, one thing that she always thinks about is the fact that a comfort zone is a lovely place, but nothing ever grows there. And I've thought about that, you know, a lot since then and also quoted it. And I think that's exactly it. It's like sometimes we need to put ourselves out of our comfort zone. We need to do things differently in order to get different results. So another one I had written down as a roadblock is like not going outside. So, it's very easy for us in this day and age. Like we can stay at home. Even if we need food, we can get it delivered to us. We literally don't need to go outside for anything. Unless you have an appointment or whatever. But even then, a lot of doctor's appointments now are on the phone. So I'm sure, and over COVID, like, a lot of us didn't go outside. And some people, even though we had the option of going for walks, like some people just didn't. So, um, yeah, we can exist if we really wanted to. Obviously, all of us here understand the benefits of nature. And I know there's a few of us in the community who unfortunately can't really go out much for like health reasons or, needing to be inside and keep their immunity as like protected. But for the most part, we all understand and even those people where they can't, like they wish they could. But there are people who've gotten really used to just being inside after COVID and not going out and kind of not putting themselves out there. And I know people who don't even go to the shop, like they literally will just get everything delivered, and they work from home. So, it's literally spending all your time in like one room or, one small space and not encountering new people or not sort of experiencing anything new. So Mel, you've said you're an introvert here, definitely prefer smaller groups. Yeah, same here. I mean, I like one-on-one because I feel like I can be more kind of authentic and open, and that's very much who I am at my core. So I don't want to do that in front of a group of people, and I typically won't. And I find that frustrating. Like I find that kind of small talk part difficult. Um, so that's why I typically don't really like big group things, because I don't feel comfortable sharing in a deep, intimate way with like loads of people. Um, and maybe it's also to do with me not being a great listener, because I think in a group dynamic, obviously, you do spend more time listening than talking, and maybe I struggle with that. If I'm being honest, that's something I need to work on. Um, So Mel has also said, yes, social isolation through COVID along with technology has increased the lack of community. Precisely. And I think it's interesting because obviously Insight Timer is the antithesis to that, right? And like Insight Timer is a place where there is community, despite it just being all of us behind screens. However, Insight Timer is kind of, I think for me personally, the exception that proves the rule. It's a really rare, really special, really wonderful place. Um, And speaking of Insight Timer, if any of you aren't like premium subscribers, I really recommend it. Like I'm in the UK and it's I think £35 for the year, and you get access to like all these courses, premium tracks, and frankly, Insight Timer really does need the support because they do a lot of stuff, and there's no advertising, so that they don't have like loads of revenue. And they kind of really taken a firm stance on not wanting to sell to investors who have who want to put adverts and stuff on it. So in order for us to keep this space the way it is, it's really important to support teachers through kind of donations and follows and listening to their tracks and reviewing and rating them. But also, if you can subscribe to Insight Timer as well. Obviously, there's loads of things that are included for free. So if you can't financially make it work, fair enough. But you can support in a lot of other ways. But on that note, if anyone feels called to contribute to me and to make a donation to support my work and my session here, or if you've gained any value, I'd really appreciate that. As I mentioned, this is my main source of income at the moment because I was made redundant like 3-ish months ago, and I'm working on a community kind of volunteering project that's gonna keep me busy all the way through to kind of end of Jan, maybe even end of Feb to be confirmed, but that's not paid, unfortunately. So yeah, if anything that I've shared has been of value, or you want to kind of pay it forward, you can either make a donation here, or I've got a link of other ways to support me in my link tree. Um, and if you're open to kind of following me here and also on YouTube, I'd really appreciate that. I've got a target for YouTube to reach 500 subscribers, and then I'll start creating kind of original shorter content on there for everyone as well. So back to this list of roadblocks, because we've got 20 minutes left. And it seems like we might not be able to do like a deep dive on any of these because we're more than halfway through, but we've still got a few things. So obviously the kind of cure to the not going outside thing is making the effort to go outside. And I I will like, I noticed today when I went to the supermarket, I hadn't necessarily planned to do that, but I think it made a difference to my day. And I spoke to a few people that worked in the supermarket, kind of had a few like small but nice exchanges. And I really liked it, and it made my day better than it would have been had I just stayed inside the whole time. Plus, I wouldn't have got the lovely like fennel and goat's cheese for my salad that I made while listening to Rob Gregerson that I'm going to eat after this. Um, for those of you who joined later, it's a grapefruit fennel goat's cheese, like rocket, lentil, balsamic, olive oil salad. Um, and because I'm on the verge of getting a cold or already got a cold, I don't know. But I feel like I just need all the nutrients right now. And I'm gonna put some chili in there as well, I think. I just thought of that. Okay, so we've got comfort zone was the next one, which we've kind of talked about inadvertently through shyness. But yes, staying in our comfort zone can stop us from meeting new people or connecting with people or building community. And so obviously the cure for that is, take baby steps or big steps if you feel called, but get out of your comfort zone if it's comfortable and safe for you to do so. Um, Lack of effort is another one. So we've covered this before where we talk about how, misunderstandings with friends where one person thinks, oh well, this person said that like they were, where you feel let down by friend, or you were the last person to message or whatever. We've covered that before. Guys, I will be right back. I'm gonna take a little intermission just to blow my nose. Bear with me. Keep yourselves on the chat. Chat amongst yourselves. I'll be back in a second. I figured no one wants to hear or see me blow my nose here, so I will be right back. Hi guys. Just got a dress on. I'm moving underneath me, and I've just a friendly reminder that it's cold and flu season. So if you blow your nose, wash your hands, which I did, and they're still wet because I was trying to hurry back to you. Tatiana, you asked, did I understand you right that fennel and fennel tea help with cold? Yeah, I think it might be fresh fennel because. So what I looked up, I'll see if I can replicate the Google search. Best foods to help with cold. So, I don't know where it was, but I did it on my phone. But I think I don't know about fennel tea, but I would imagine fennel. So it says, okay, fennel can help with colds and coughs because it has anti-inflammatory properties and can help clear congestion. So fennel tea is a traditional remedy for colds and coughs because it's full of antioxidants and vitamin C, which can help fight infections. You can boil fennel seeds in water and steep them, or add green tea leaves and honey for extra flavor. Sliced fennel in salads, a roasted fennel, fennel and buffalo milk cheese. That sounds great. And other foods that can help with colds include citrus fruits. So that's why I thought I'd make the fennel, grapefruit, and orange salad. So yeah, Tatiana, I didn't know that the tea works as well, but I guess it does. So Maxine has shared lack of consistency, a roadblock. Yeah, so we were talking about like lack of effort, and that can come from both sides of a relationship, right? So that's definitely something where, but one of the things that I've shared previously, I don't know if you were in that session, Maxine, and you can listen back on YouTube if not. But my one of my feelings has been that um quite often we can be quick to like take a step back because we feel like we were the last person to send a message, or we were the last person to like make the effort or make the call or whatever else, right? So we feel like the onus is on the other person. However, what I've said about this is like it's not as simple as that, right? So we all have different capacities, we all have different lifestyles. Yeah, I love grapefruit, Tatiana, but we all have different capacities, we all have different lifestyles. So, I don't have any children. I have more time and availability to look at my phone and check my phone and respond to things. One of my closest friends has, and she lives in the same building as me. And she's got two babies now. One is 3 and one is less than 1. And so she's super busy, plus she's working. And so I find that, over the time that she's had babies, she's less able to reply. And I know that because not only obviously like she is less responsive, but I see firsthand how busy and hectic it is for her, and the time, like the fact that some days she doesn't even have time to like drink water. So I can then not take it personally. So I think it's important to kind of have perspective on those things, and that actually perspective is one of the things on my list. So perspective and or lack of perspective can be a roadblock to connection. So if we're not willing or able to see someone else's point of view or have or I guess understanding or context for their life. Oh wow, you've got grapefruit trees. That's amazing. That's so cool. Um, yeah, I love grapefruit. It's such a good. Just even the smell of a grapefruit, like the rind, it's incredible. If anyone isn't a fan of grapefruit, just go to the shop, and you don't normally buy it. Just go to the shop and pick one up and smell it. Like grapefruit oil is really good for boosting like mood and waking you up as well. And obviously on the rind, there's the oils are in there. You can also like dry them out and put them in drinks, or put them like I've put them in the bath before to get the oils out. So like when I've peeled a grapefruit, and I've left it, then dried it, and then put them in the bath. Um, but or used it as a garnish for like a drink or whatever. Um, but yes, we were at lack of effort and perspective, because perspective was like lower down the list, but we've kind of rolled it into one. So it's important to look at this as we're in where we're taking things kind of maybe personally. And actually, taking things personally is also on this list, which is something that I can do sometimes, unfortunately. Um, and yeah, if we're taking things personally and not looking at the bigger picture, or thinking about, oh, but where is the other person coming from? What are the set of circumstances or the conditions that led to them not being able to respond, or maybe letting me down, etc. Um, that can help us to kind of remove some of our the tricks our ego plays on us that prevent us from having connection with others. And I didn't put ego on this list, but I think that's a big one. Our ego can, you know, prevent us from connecting with others. For example, if we have a sense of, let's say, like superiority, like, oh, this person isn't good enough for me to connect with, or this person isn't on my level, where, when we don't actually know that much about them to begin with. So those are kind of most of the factors. We've got a few left to cover. Um, so I had open-mindedness, which is obviously the antithesis of kind of ego. So being open to meeting new people, being open to opportunities, and being open-minded about like who you connect with, because you never know who you're going to meet. You don't know their life story. It's very easy to judge people, and even though a lot of us here are more open, I'd say, than a lot of other people. Um, we value like spirit and soul and like energy over what job someone does or how much money they make, or where they live or whatever. It's more about like the things that most of us care about are, we want to connect with people who are like considerate, respectful, like kind, focused on self-improvement and personal development, believe in giving back. Like all of us are in this space because we're interested in more in that sort of thing than we are in, let's say, like materialism or hedonism or self-indulgence. And yeah, you can easily see how like the two different things that can help or hinder you to be part of a community or build kind of connection or not. And it's a funny thing, because people always say like, oh, but going to the pub or going for drinks is like a way to connect. But I had I've known people in my life before who are um very reliant on alcohol as a form of socializing and connecting. And I was going to be more specific with this story and example, but I'm absolutely not now because the replays go on YouTube. But I'm sure we all know people like this. This is just a typical like stereotype as well. That if you look at, so there's, if we just take like a person, and I know more than one person like this, where they have a lot of friends that they drink with, or like go out and like do drugs with or whatever, and like actually they would never hang out with that person sober. Like, they have nothing in common with them beyond, like, wanting to get on it, um, so to speak. And I think that's interesting. Whereas, like, most of us here, we don't typically hang out with people or connect with people just because we've known them for a long time, or just because we want to, like, you know, get drunk with them. Like, that's not, as far as I'm concerned, that's not a good enough reason. And if you need a drink or, like, something to supplement you enjoying someone's company, you don't really like that person and you don't really want to be around them. Um, but yeah, loads of people do that sort of thing. Um, and there's nothing wrong in my view with, like, the occasional indulgence. I love food. I'm a massive foodie. I like the odd cocktail, but um, many, many times in my life, I have gone into spaces where people are drinking, and most people will have a drink just because they're like, "Oh, why not?" Whereas for me, it's like, if I don't feel like having a drink, I quite simply won't. Um, I'm guided by what I feel and what I want to do, not by, "Oh, because someone else is doing it." And that's something I've noticed a lot. So, I've got people in my life where they'll say, for example, they'll be like, "Oh, I want to drink less," or "I'm not drinking, like, this weekend." But then the second that someone offers them a drink, they're like, "Oh yeah, like, why not?" And then, like, later they'll kind of say or think or feel like, "Oh, but that person insisted." And I was like, "They didn't exist. They didn't insist. You didn't need any extra nudge at all. Like, you were just waiting for somebody to give you permission." You ultimately, like, we do what we want to, and we can sometimes use other people to make excuses for that, right? It's the same as, like, let's say you wanted to go to the gym. You'd made a commitment to yourself, you're going to go to the gym, and you speak to a friend, and there's not a good reason for you not to go. It's not like you're not well or whatever, but you speak to a friend and they're like, "Oh, sometimes you just got to, like, take it easy and enjoy your day." And but you might have a friend that so that's one option. You might have one friend that says, like, "Oh, um, don't worry about it. You can go tomorrow." And then that kind of makes you go, "Okay, yeah, you're right. Like, let me, like, I deserve a break." And then another part of it is that, sorry, not another part. On the flip side of that, you might have a friend, and I encourage you guys to try and be these kinds of friends, because I want to be this kind of person, and I try to be, and I want more of these people in my life. But, if you have a friend who actually questions you with regards to what your values are and what's best for you. So, like, if I said to my friend that, "Oh, I don't feel like going to the gym today. I know I should go." Like, another way they could approach it, or that we could approach it if someone says that to us, is to say, "What are your long-term goals? And where, like, will you regret not going to the gym? Is there a possibility you'll regret not going? And if you go, like, will you maybe regret going?" Um, or, they kind of help you to ask questions that help you to find the right thing for you in that moment, rather than, like, just excusing your bad behavior. Because there is a thing that says that, people like to, not intentionally, but people like to sometimes try to hold us back, not because they're bad people, but because it makes them feel like they don't have to then look at themselves, or they don't have to change their behaviors. Does that make sense? Hi Evie, lovely to see you. Welcome, welcome. I don't know what point you joined at, but it's nice to have you here. I've got 5 minutes until the end, and as you guys can probably hear, my throat is going. For those of you who've joined later, I've got a little, like, cold situation, I think. That started. It's like the last few days I've been feeling a little bit run down, but it's kind of gotten a bit more, I think, like last night and today. But I don't have a fever, so I'm very grateful for that. And I went for a lovely walk outside today. I managed to go to the shops and get some groceries. And I think, fingers crossed, I'm going to wake up tomorrow feeling much better, because I've got some training that I need to attend for this volunteering. So hopefully I wake up and I'm fine and all is well. I'm going to get off of this session and make that delicious, like, no, eat that salad. I need to dress it and then have it. And hopefully all of the vitamin C and fennel and everything will help. Yeah, exactly, Tatiana. And then some, like, lemon and ginger with honey afterwards as well. So the other things that I had, so we covered actually most of them. The last one I had which kind of comes under like taking things personally. And this is something that I sometimes struggle with is like being a bit too serious and having a lack of humor. So sometimes if someone makes like a joke that I don't like, I can take it personally, and I think that it's kind of yeah, that can prevent like connection or cause some conflict where there doesn't need to be. So that's something that I'm also like working on, is being able to kind of like laugh at myself more and like take things a little bit like lighter. Um, so I was going to, because many of us seem to need a bit of a boost with health at the moment. So I did say, as those of you who are at the beginning will know, I read from this book last week, and I had a different book I was going to read from today, but actually my Kindle is at the other end of the sofa, so I'm not going to move again and get it. But I did actually flag that this book. So this book is about the Danish search for the world's happiest people. And last week we talked a little bit about a section they had on money, because that was quite a thematic thing that came up a few times like during the session and what we were talking about. And then today there's, because I'm under the weather and a few other people have mentioned similar things, I'm going to talk about the chapter that they have on health, and if there's um any interesting insights in this book on that. I'm trying to open it and hold the mic at one point. Um, but before I do that, because I'm going to, yeah, Gopesh, isn't it normal to not laugh at every joke on you? Yeah, it is. But I think, I'll be honest, I think I'm extra sensitive. So I think there's things that I could probably like let go of a little bit, and not necessarily not even laugh at, but like just not make a big deal out of, or just let it slide, let it go. I definitely could work on that. But yeah, and I think it's important as well, like to have boundaries, and if something crosses a boundary for you to be able to voice that. But I think in some ways, it's easy to become the little boy who cried wolf and like get upset, or like not be able to laugh at anything. Um, yeah, I'm going to end on this. But if anyone would like to support me, I would appreciate any donations or any contributions that you guys are able to make. This is my main source of income at the moment while I'm working on a few voluntary projects and after being made redundant. But other ways you can support me if you're not in a position to make a donation is to follow me here, to share my live sessions, and also to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which you can find the link on my link tree. And if you're on an Apple device here, Apple does take like 30% of your donation. So teachers don't get it. So if you'd like to support in a different way, there's like a PayPal link on my link tree, to kind of, you know, stop giving Apple more money than they already have. Um, so this is what this book has to say about health, and this is the kind of note we'll end on. And just for now, like, thank you for being here, guys, and spending this time with me. So health. Across cultures, there seems to be one thing that all parents wish for their children: good health. Good health enables us to play, to seek out adventures, to pursue happiness. At the Happiness Research Institute, we, together with Leo Innovation Lab, have explored how psoriasis, a chronic and recurrent inflammatory disease of the skin, affects happiness. Up at the time of writing, the So Happy Project, and that's so spelled PSO like psoriasis, the So Happy Project has collected data from almost 50,000 people from more than 40 countries across the world. In every country, you find that those living with psoriasis are less happy than the general population. As a happiness researcher, I cannot see a more obvious policy to improve quality of life than by providing universal healthcare. In the Nordic countries, all of which consistently rank among the 10 happiest countries in the world, free healthcare is available to everyone. People simply have less to worry about in daily life than most other people on this front, and that forms a sound basis for high levels of happiness. Or, as US Senator Bernie Sanders puts it, in Denmark, there's a very different understanding of what freedom means. In that country, they've gone a long way to ending the enormous anxieties that come with economic insecurity. Instead of promoting a system which allows a few to have enormous wealth, they have developed a system which guarantees a strong minimal standard of living to all, including the children, the elderly, and the disabled. In other words, Breaking Bad, the TV drama where a teacher turned struggled to pay his medical bills for cancer treatment, would have made a pretty shitty TV show in a Nordic context. Here is your treatment plan, Walter. I'll see you on the 5th. Furthermore, there is a reverse relationship between happiness and health. Our happiness has an impact on our health. A greater level of happiness predicts better future health, better future physical health. According to the World Happiness Report 2012, the medical literature has found high correlations between various low well-being scores and subsequent. I need to sneeze. Oh, thank you, Gopesh. Have a great evening. Thank you for being here. So, the medical literature has found high correlations between various low well-being scores and subsequent coronary heart disease, strokes, and length of life. Individuals with higher positive affect have better neuroendocrine. Wow, I said that right. Neuroendocrine, inflammatory, and cardiovascular activity. Those with higher positive affect are less likely to catch a cold when exposed to a cold virus and recover faster if they do. I feel like I need to work on my higher positive affect, because I will be honest, things have been um I have allowed things to get to me a little bit recently, which I need to work on. And because I generally am like a positive person, and I can stay in a kind of high vibe, positive state. But yeah, there's certain things that when I'm like triggered, I struggle with. So I need to work better on that. Work better. Work at that. Work at being better at that. Yeah. Let me catch up on the comments. Da-da-da-da-da. So has anyone got any questions or any final things to like as I read through the comments, just to end on? We always go over a few minutes, we know that. Um right. So yeah, was there something about the work farewell I wanted to share? Um yeah, I mean nothing major. It was nice. It was just a weird sort of end of an era thing. The food was delicious. My favorite thing that I ate, or the thing that sort of springs to mind, was courgette fritti, which is like a very thinly sliced fried courgette, so really crispy and really salty and delicious. So yeah, yum yum yum. Um, and um, Lauren, you said thank you and you learnt a few things. Thank you for being here. And Tatiana, thank you for your love and gratitude. And yeah, and you suspected that about happiness. It's when you catch things. Yeah. So I feel like I definitely, and I'm reading a book at the moment by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which talks about this, that our health is really affected by our mindset. And one of the things, do you know what, I'm gonna get, do you guys want to hear a really interesting thing on this topic that I heard? Send up some hearts and I'll get the book because it's right next to me. But I bookmarked this because it was something that I found very profound, and it talks about how when we're in fight or flight mode, like why that affects our health. Let me go grab it. I'll do that. I think it'll be a nice reminder for me as well. But yeah, I really recommend the book if any of you guys are interested. I think it's called Breaking the Habit of Being You. Okay. So, and just to reiterate for anybody who Mel, I don't know if you're on my last live, but I talked about how I was meant to go to Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreat in Paris like last week, and it got cancelled because the French authorities kind of question his teachings. And I was speaking to someone who is kind of a spiritual and consciousness coach, and he was saying that he was so surprised because, Dr. Joe Dispenza isn't the new kid on the block. Right. You can catch up on that on my YouTube channel if you'd like to. And for anybody who didn't catch this, I've got a goal to reach 500 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're open to following, subscribing, and sharing with people that you know who might find it interesting, once I reach a few more followers, I'm going to be creating kind of original shorter form content, and also just little snippets of wisdom from these sessions that I've shared, so that if you've missed the past ones, you can just get like the key nuggets and takeaways. So let me just figure out how to. Okay. So here we go. So thought alone. So unlike animals, so when I haven't read Supernatural, but I've heard it's good. Um, yeah. Yeah, so they had concerns about his teachings apparently, but I'm sure that's also true. If anyone's seen Emily in Paris, that's the stereotype from like portrayed there, isn't it? I knew you meant French. Okay. So one of the things that he says, he talks about how, when an animal is feels like it's under threat, it goes into fight or flight mode. And it's if it's grazing and then, like, let's say, and it's like relaxed and then a predator comes along, its muscles will fire up and the fight or flight response will kick in, and it will, bolt and run. And then as soon as it's safe again, its body will self-regulate, it will carry on grazing, and it will be relaxed and fine. And that's how it should work. So animals typically will only be, as far as we know, their fight or flight response will only be triggered by actual physical danger or physical threats. Whereas for us as humans, thought alone can trigger our stress response and keep it going. So this is kind of one of the problems, and I think that I can sometimes fall prey to this. But essentially, and the this is a direct quote. Whether we see a lion in the Serengeti, bump into our not so friendly ex at the grocery store, or freak out in freeway traffic because we're late for a meeting, we turn on the stress response because we're reacting to our external environment. I'm gonna have a sip of tea, then I'll carry on. So, unlike animals, we have the ability to turn on the fight or flight response by thought alone. And that thought doesn't have to be about anything in our present circumstances. We can turn on that response in anticipation of some future event. Even more disadvantageous, we can produce the same stress response by revisiting an unhappy memory that is stitched in the fabric of our grey matter. So either we anticipate stress response producing experiences, or we recollect them. Our bodies are either existing in the future or in the past. To our detriment, we turn short term stressful situations into long term ones. On the other hand, as far as we can tell, animals don't have the ability, or should I say disability, to turn on the stress response so frequently and so easily that they can't turn it off. That deer, back to happily grazing, isn't consumed with thoughts about what just happened a few minutes ago, let alone the time a coyote chased it 2 months ago. This kind of repetitive stress is harmful to us because no organism was designed with a mechanism to deal with the negative effects on the body when the stress response is turned on with great frequency and for long duration. In other words, no creature can avoid the consequences of living in long term emergency situations. When we turn on the stress response and can't turn it off, we're headed for some type of breakdown in the body. Let's say you keep turning on the fight or flight system due to some threatening circumstance in your life, real or imagined. As your racing heart pumps enormous amounts of blood to your extremities and your body is knocked out of homeostasis, you're becoming prepared by the nervous system to run or fight. But let's face it, you can't flee to the Bahamas, nor can you throttle your fellow employee. That would be primitive. So, as a consequence, you condition, your heart to race all the time, and you may be headed for high blood pressure, arrhythmias, and so on. And what's in store when you keep mobilizing all that energy for some emergency situation? If you're putting the bulk of your energy towards some issue in your external environment, there will be little left for the body's internal environment. Your immune system, which monitors your inner world, can't keep up with the lack of energy for growth and repair. Therefore, you get sick, whether it be from a cold, cancer, or rheumatoid arthritis. All are immune mediated conditions. When you think about it, the real difference between animals and ourselves is that although we both experience stress, humans re experience and pre experience traumatic situations. What is so harmful about having our stress response triggered by pressures from the past, present, and future? When we get knocked out of chemical balance so often, eventually that out of balance state becomes the norm. As a result, we're destined to live out our genetic destiny, and in most cases, that means suffering from some illness. The reason is clear. The domino effect from the cascade of hormones and other chemicals we release in response to stress can dysregulate some of our genes, and that may create disease. In other words, repeated stress pushes the genetic buttons that cause us to begin to head towards our genetic destiny. So, what was once very adaptive behavior and a beneficial biochemical response, fight or flight, has become a highly maladaptive and harmful set of circumstances. For instance, when a lion was chasing your ancestors, the stress response was doing what it was designed to do: protect them from their outer environment. That's adaptive. But if, for days on end, you fret about your promotion, over focus on your presentation to upper management, or worry about your mother being in the hospital, these situations create the same chemicals as though you were being chased by a lion. Now that's maladaptive. You're staying too long in emergency mode. Fight or flight is using up the energy your internal environment needs. Your body is stealing the vital energy from your immune, digestive, and endocrine systems, amongst others, and directing it to the muscles that you'd use to fight a predator or run away from danger. But in your situation, that's only working against you. From a psychological perspective, overproduction of stress hormones creates the human emotions of anger, fear, envy, and hatred. Incites feelings of aggression, frustration, anxiety, and insecurity, and causes us to experience pain, suffering, sadness, hopelessness, and depression. Most people spend the majority of their time preoccupied with negative thoughts and feelings. Is it likely that most of the things that are happening in our present circumstances are negative? Obviously not. Negativity runs so high because we're either living in anticipation of stress or re experiencing it through memory. So, most of our thoughts and feelings are driven by these strong hormones of stress and survival. So, yeah, that's the bits that I wanted to share. And it's 11:15 now, so I'm gonna sign off because my voice is like um not gonna kind of go any longer. That book is called Breaking the Habit of Being You. Let me check. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Um, I'm gonna go, but if anybody would like to support me, either via a donation or following me here or on YouTube, I would be very, very grateful and very appreciative. And if you're on an Apple device and you don't want Apple to take 30% of the donation, I've got a PayPal link for donating on my link tree as well. And thank you for spending the time with me tonight. And I am going to be live next week on Tuesday at 9 p.m. So hope to see you guys then. And I don't know what the topic is yet, but if anyone has anything specific they want me to cover, let me know. Otherwise, it will be something that I've kind of thought about and prepared, and then also obviously what I'm reading and little excerpts like we usually do. Good night, guys. Take care as well. And Evie, I hope you feel better soon too. Good night, everyone. Bye.